there is something they never told you about pain. They never told you that the kind of pain you have been carrying, the kind that lives not in your body, but somewhere behind your eyes, somewhere in the quiet moments before you fall asleep, somewhere in the middle of a laugh, when the ghost of what they did to you suddenly surfaces. That kind of pain is not a sign that you are broken. It is a sign that you are real, that what you felt was real, that what you gave was real, and that is something they could never take from you. No matter how many times they tried to rewrite the story and make you the villain of your own life. If you have ever stood in a room full of people and felt completely alone because the one person who was supposed to see you spent every moment making sure you doubted yourself, then this is for you. If you have ever apologized for things you did not do, explained yourself until your voice ran dry, shrunk yourself into a shape that fit their needs, and then watched them act as though you were never enough, this is for you. If you have ever loved someone so completely that you forgot to love yourself and now you are sitting with the wreckage of that forgetting, then you are sitting with the wreckage of that forgetting, and that's where the real pain begins. Ying to figure out who you are without the noise of their voice in your head, this is for you. Before we go any further, if this is resonating with you, if something inside you is already recognizing its own reflection in these words, then subscribe to this channel right now, because what we do here is not just talk about narcissistic abuse. We go deep into the psychology of recovery, the rebuilding of identity, the reclamation of your inner world. Every video on this channel is built for people like you, people who are ready to stop surviving and start truly living. Subscribe and let this be the place where your transformation begins. You are not weak. That is the first thing you need to understand. And you need to understand it not just in your mind, but in your body, in your bones, in the part of you that still flinches when someone raises their voice or goes suddenly cold. You are not weak, you were targeted. There is a profound difference between those two things, and that difference is everything. Narcissists do not choose broken people. They choose bright people, empathetic people, people whose capacity for love is so vast and so genuine that it becomes in the hands of the world. NG person of vulnerability. They chose you because you were capable of depth. They chose you because you could feel things they could not. They chose you because your light was real, and they needed it to fill the hollow place inside themselves where a self should have been.
Think about that for a moment.
Really let that settle into you. They needed you, not in the way healthy people need each other, not in the tender, mutual, reciprocal way that love actually works. They needed you the way a flame needs oxygen, consumingly, completely, and without care for whether you survived the burning. They did not love you. They fed on you. And when you understand that, when you truly understand the nature of what was happening, something begins to shift because you stop asking the question that has been haunting you, what was wrong with me? And you start asking the question that actually matters. What was happening to me? What was happening to you was a systematic dismantling. It did not happen all at once. It never does. It happens slowly, the way erosion happens so gradually that you cannot see the change. Until one day you look in the mirror and you do not recognize the person looking back. It happened through the small moments. The joke that was not really a joke. The silence that was not really silence but a punishment. The apology they never gave but somehow made you feel responsible for earning. The way they could take something you loved about yourself and in a single sentence make you feel ashamed of it. Over time you learn to be smaller. You learn to need less. You learn to explain yourself. You learn to manage their emotions while abandoning your own. And you called it love because you did not yet know what love was supposed to feel like. But here is what they did not count on. You are still here after everything. After the confusion and the chaos and the grief and the moments when you genuinely did not know how you were going to stand back up, you are still here. And that is not a small thing. That stubborn, quiet, unbreakable part of you that held on, that is where your power lives. And we are going to talk about how to use it, not to hurt them, not to expose them, not to make them pay in any dramatic or visible way. Because here is the psychological truth that most people miss when they are in the aftermath of narcissistic abuse. The most devastating thing you can ever do to a narcissist is not confrontation, It is not revenge. The most devastating thing you can do is transform. Genuinely, deeply, quietly transform and let them watch from a distance they can never close again. A narcissist's entire internal architecture is built around control, not love, not connection. Control, because control is what gives them the sense of self they cannot generate from within. When they have access to you, to your reactions, your pain, your hope, your forgiveness, your attempts to make things right, they have a mirror. And in that mirror they see what they need to see. Your suffering confirms their power. Your love confirms their worth. Your confusion confirms their superiority. Every emotional response you give them feeds the system. Even your anger feeds it. Even your grief feeds it. Even your attempts to expose them or fight back feeds it. Because at the center of all of it is still you, still responding to them, still giving them the thing they need most. Your attention, your energy, your presence in their story. This is why silence is not just a strategy. Silence is the deepest form of power you have. Not the silence of someone who has given up, but the silence of someone who has finally understood that they are no longer available, that their energy is no longer a resource that can be accessed, that the game, the push and pull, the hot and cold, the idealizing and the discarding is over. Not because you declared it over in some dramatic confrontation, but because you simply stepped out of the arena. That shift, that moment when you stop engaging, stop explaining, stop hoping they will finally understand what they did to you. That is the moment the ground shifts beneath their feet. Because a narcissist can handle your anger, they can handle your tears. What they cannot handle is your indifference, your wholeness, the version of you that has moved past needing anything from them at all. No contact is not a punishment you inflict on them. It is a mercy you extend to yourself. It is the act of removing yourself from an environment that was designed to keep you confused, destabilized, and dependent. It is a recognition that you cannot heal in the presence of the thing that wounded you. You cannot rebuild your sense of reality while someone is actively working to distort it. No contact is not about them. It is entirely, why, completely wholly about you. And when you remove yourself from their sphere, something remarkable begins to happen inside you. The noise starts to quiet. The constant mental rehearsing of conversations, the replaying of interactions, the obsessive searching for the moment where it all went wrong, it starts to slow down. Because what they created in you was a form of addiction, a biochemical emotional dependency built on cycles of pain and relief, cruelty and tenderness, rejection and acceptance. Your nervous system learned to exist in that cycle, and stepping out of it will feel at first like losing your footing, but stay with it. Stay with the discomfort. Stay with the emptiness that comes before the filling. Because what fills that space when you give it time, when you protect it, when you refuse to go back and reopen the wound just to feel something familiar, what fills that space is you, the real you, the you that existed before they arrived and started slowly editing you into someone more convenient for their needs. That person is still in there. They never left. They were just buried under years of conditioning, years of being told that their instincts were wrong, their feelings were too much, their needs were unreasonable. That person has been waiting quietly, patiently for you to come back. And now we come to the part of this conversation that I need you to really receive, not just hear receive. Let it land somewhere deeper than your thoughts. Because this is where everything changes. You have been asking the wrong question. You have been asking how to make them regret what they did. And I understand why. I understand the desire for them to see, to truly see the weight of what they put you through, to feel even for a moment the full consequence of their cruelty. That desire is human. It is not a flaw. But the question is not how to make them regret it. The question is how to build a life so full, so whole, so genuinely yours that their regret becomes inevitable, not as a goal, but as a side effect. Because regret for a narcissist does not come from your confrontation. It does not come from your tears or your anger or your carefully crafted message about how they hurt you. It comes from one specific thing. It comes from losing access to the version of you they once controlled. When that version disappears, when it is replaced by someone who is grounded and calm and completely serenely unbothered, something happens in them that they have no language for. something that feels to them like loss. That disturbance is what people call regret. And you will earn it not by fighting, not by proving anything. You will earn it by living, by genuinely, deeply, completely living without them at the center of your story. The process of rebuilding your identity after narcissistic abuse is not about becoming who you were before. Because you are not who you were before, the experience changed you, and that change is not something to mourn. It is something to alchemize. You are not going back. You are going forward into a version of yourself that carries the wisdom of what you survived without being defined by it. A version that knows with a certainty that cannot be argued away exactly what love should feel like and exactly what it should not. A version that has a finely tuned internal sense of discernment built on the deep embodied knowledge of what is real and what is performance, of what is connection and what is consumption. This is the version of you they never prepared for. This is the version of you they are not equipped to manipulate because the tools they use no longer work. The self-doubt they cultivated in you is dissolving. The need for their validation is drying up. The reflexive urge to explain yourself, to justify your feelings, to make your pain legible to someone who never had any intention of understanding it. It is leaving you, and as it leaves, what remains is something extraordinary. What remains is you simply fully powerful you. Emotional detachment in its truest form is not about closing your heart. It is about removing the hook. It is about understanding that you can be fully present, fully feeling, fully alive without being attached to the outcome of someone else's choices, without tethering your sense of peace to their behavior, without allowing their moods, their cycles, their chaos to become the weather system you live inside. When you detach from a narcissist, truly detach, not as a strategy, but as a genuine internal shift, you stop reacting not because you are numb, but because you are no longer in the game. Their provocations land on open air. Their attempts to re-engage find nothing to grip. Their sudden warmth, their reaching out, their testing to see if the old connection still responds. It meets with something they have never encountered from you before, a genuine lack of need. And that lack of need is to them completely disorienting because they've built an entire relationship structure around your need, around your hope, around your belief that if you just tried hard enough, loved fully enough, stayed patient enough, they would eventually become the person they pretended to be in the beginning. When that belief dies, when it does not just go dormant but actually dissolves, they lose their leverage. And without leverage, a narcissist has nothing because they do not know how to connect. They only know how to control. And you have made yourself uncontrollable not through aggression or resistance, but through something far more powerful, through wholeness. Your worth was never in question. It was never actually reducible by anything they said or did or withheld. Your worth is not something that was given to you by their approval and therefore destroyable by their disapproval. Your worth is intrinsic. It is the fact of you. The specific, irreplaceable, particular fact of you, the way your mind works, the way you love, the things that move you, the be. A tells you have fought quietly, the depth you carry, the resilience that is even now, even after everything holding you upright, that worth was never on the table. They only made you think it was. And that thinking, that false belief that your value was something to be earned and that they held the measuring stick, that was the most successful lie they ever told you. And now you know it was a lie and you can never unknow it. This is the irreversible moment. This is the point of no return that every healing journey has. The moment when the understanding becomes visceral rather than intellectual. When it stops being something you know in your head and becomes something you know in your body. When the sentence your worth is not determined by their treatment of you, stops sounding like a platitude and starts feeling like oxygen. You breathe it in and you realize that everything has been pointing to this reclamation, to this returning, to this quiet but devastating moment of self-recognition where you look at yourself and you say, without conditions, without qualifications, without waiting for someone else to confirm it first, I see you. I see what you survived. I see what you carried. I see who you are, and it is enough. You are more than enough. You always were. You begin to make choices differently. Small choices at first. The choice to rest when you are tired, instead of pushing through to meet someone else's expectations. The choice to speak honestly instead of managing how your honesty will land. The choice to spend time in the company of people who do not require you to shrink in order for them to feel comfortable. The choice to feel proud of yourself quietly without needing it witnessed or validated. These small choices accumulate, they compound. They build layer by layer a new internal reality, a reality in which you are safe, a reality in which your feelings are information rather than inconveniences, a reality in which your instincts are trustworthy rather than suspect. And as that reality solidifies, something extraordinary begins to happen in how you move through the world. Your posture changes. The way you enter a room changes. The way you speak, the pace of it, the confidence of it, the way you no longer trail off at the end of sentences as though apologizing for taking up sonic space. It changes. People around you feel it before they can name it. There is something different, something settled, something quietly formidable. You are not louder. You are not harder, you are not performing strength, you simply are strong in that deep-rooted, unperformable way that comes only from having genuinely done the work. The narcissist's cruelty was never actually about you. I know it felt personal. I know it felt targeted and specific and devastatingly intimate. I know it went to the exact places inside you that were most tender, most uncertain, most in need of care. But it was not about you, it was about them. Their fear, their emptiness, their inability to tolerate genuine intimacy, their compulsive need to reduce the people around them so that no one could ever be greater than the image they have constructed of themselves. You were not a target because of your weakness. You are a target because of your magnitude, and that magnitude, that capacity for depth and love and authentic feeling that made you so valuable to them, that is yours. It was always yours. And now that you are no longer giving it away to someone who consumed it without gratitude, imagine what becomes possible. Imagine where that magnitude goes when it is directed towards. Do your own life, your own dreams, your own becoming. You have been pouring into a container that had no bottom, and now the pouring stops. Now you look around and you see the landscape of your own potential, unobstructed for the first time in longer than you can remember, stretching out ahead of you in every direction. And you realize that every quality they criticized in you is actually a gift. Your sensitivity is not a liability. It is the very thing that will allow you to experience life at a depth most people never access. Your empathy is not a weakness. It is the source of every genuine connection you will build from here forward. Your intensity, your depth, your refusal to be superficial, even when superficiality would have been easier. These are not flaws. These are the marks of an extraordinary human being who went through something that could have broken them and chose again and again, even on the hardest days, to keep moving towards something better. That is the life that creates their regret, not through your suffering, but through your thriving, not through your pain, but through your peace, not through your neediness, but through your completeness. When they see or sense or hear about who you have become, and they will, in the way that people always somehow encounter evidence of the paths they chose not to take, the regret that moves through them will have nothing to do with anything you deliberately did. It will simply be the natural consequence of having let go of something rare, something irreplaceable, something that grew in the absence of their diminishment into something extraordinary. You are that something extraordinary. You always were. And every single day from this point forward, the world is going to know it more clearly because you are done hiding, done shrinking, done negotiating for the right to take up space. You are here fully, unapologetically, magnificently here, and nothing can put you back in that small, quiet corner where they tried to keep you. Somewhere in the accumulation of your healing moments, you will realize that you stopped thinking about whether they will ever regret what they did. Not because the desire for justice disappeared, but because you are too busy living to spend energy on what is happening in their inner world. And that beautiful, complete, utterly natural shift in focus, that is the moment of true freedom. That is the moment when the last strand of their hold on you releases, not with a dramatic snap, but with a quiet, barely perceptible loosening, like a knot slowly undoing itself in warm water. You are free. You are becoming free. Every day a little more. Every honest thought, every boundary honored, every moment of genuine self-compassion. It is freedom accumulating. It is power that belongs to no one but you. It is a life being rebuilt from the inside out on a foundation of truth rather than illusion, of self-knowledge rather than self-abandonment, of love that begins within and radiates outward into every dimension of your existence. They do not get to define the next chapter. They do not get a seat at the table of your becoming. That chapter is closed not with bitterness, with clarity, with the clean, decisive clarity of someone who finally fully understands what they were dealing with and has made the irreversible choice to invest their precious, finite, irreplaceable energy somewhere it will actually grow. Invest it in yourself, invest it in your healing, invest it in the relationships that are reciprocal and real, invest it in your dreams, which are not too big and not too uche and do not need to be scaled down to fit someone else's comfort. Invest it in the mornings where you feel genuinely at peace, in the friendships where you are seen without having to perform, in the quiet evenings where you simply exist without dread, without monitoring, without bracing for what comes next, in the extraordinary, ordinary beauty of a life lived on your own terms. If these words found something in you that needed to be found, if something in this conversation stirred the part of you that is ready to stop surviving and begin truly reclaiming your life, then this channel is where you need to be. Subscribe right now. Every video here is built from the same place. Deep psychological insight, genuine understanding of what narcissistic abuse does to a person, and an unwavering belief in your capacity to heal, grow, and build something that is wholly and beautifully yours. Subscribe, turn on the notifications, and come back every time you need to be reminded of who you actually are and what you are actually capable of. Because this is just the beginning, and the beginning is extraordinary.